to set out the stage for you. You gotta be inside of the green tape.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise they will get mad at us.
Why you were getting me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
it's a dry one. It's a dry run that is live.
Okay, so should we just get going? Because I know that we have,
Here are your notes.
thank
Screenshots.
you.
Here's your clicker.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
So we all should talk to Sarah.
That would be awesome, right?
We practiced it beforehand,
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Ward 4 Town Hall. My name is Terry. I'm the Ward 4 City Councilor. And with me today is Pascal. Pascal, you can just use your hand to wave in front of the camera thing, too. There's Pascal. And Jack's in the back. You can't see Jack, but Jack is also waving. So thank you again for coming. We have a pretty big agenda, and we have a lot to update you on. This is being live streamed to
YouTube and Facebook.
YouTube and Facebook. So you'll be able to see these later on if the information is going a little too fast. But so just really quickly. Yeah, just when we tried it. I just did it. Okay. Just so that we'll get started on our traditional land acknowledgement. We are situated on the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, and Haudenosaunee. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge the land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. So today I just wish and encourage you to really explore and think about what this really means and how your role as a steward of this land and how we think about how we look at our use of resources and how we want to move forward. Also, I would also be remiss, Monday is Truth and Reconciliation Day, so I hope you will participate in any way that you see fit on our role in Truth and Reconciliation. At the city, we actually do have a couple of cool events that are happening this particular weekend. We do have, there is a big celebration at Gage Park. I have a slide on that later. Pascal was really good to put that in. But on Monday in the morning, we have a sunrise ceremony at James and Burlington in the Bayfront Park area. It's going to be a pretty impactful ceremony. So if you really want to think about coming, it is at 7 in the morning because it is sunrise, but I think that it will be really impactful for those that want to join us. Our team, I already did the quick little intro, but just to reinforce the roles in our community, in our office, Pascal helps with a lot of that policy and a lot of that work around research and analysis, because the fact is the things that we want to talk about tonight are pretty big and heady, and the fact is they require a significant amount of work to even move us forward because there has been a history and a long amount of inaction. So we want to make sure that what we're doing is actually trying to essentially move the needle. Jack works she takes the front line in terms of answering a lot of our resident emails, ensuring that we're getting back to you around what are some of your concerns and that sort of thing. She also helps me administratively, and I can't do my work without both Jack and Pascal. So everyone, please ensure that everyone is very respectful to Jack and Pascal. Thank you. Let's move on. We have some special guests. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Alex. Alex Sales is with the City of Hamilton. Come on down, Alex, because he's also got some colleagues and team members that he wants to introduce you to as well. So Alex, everybody say hi to Alex around the Barton function over you.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Oh. There you go.
Come on in, come stay. Come on over.
There you go.
Listen to this.
So first of all, I'd like to thank Councilor Wang for inviting us to promote the project. Pascal for helping me out with the logistics and making the presentation, of course, Jack. So I have with me here my supervisor, my senior project manager, Omo, who has been very helpful in giving me the resources to work on the project. I also have invited our consultant with Parsons, Andrew and Kelly, who's been helping us out the details of the functional design that we are working on. Bear with me, this is kind of my first time to do some kind of a live presentation.
Yeah, you gotta hit down one.
Let me hit it for you.
So my agenda is pretty short. I just like to be able to allow a few questions coming in from you guys. Hopefully we have the answers for you. If not, then we'll take your questions. We'll take your questions moving forward. So I'm not going to go through all the text on the Barton functional design, but our main purpose here is to be able to enhance Barton Street, look at different opportunities for us to put cycling, improve a way of moving around with sidewalk, and provide a little bit of equity with the different uses of Barton. So there's a huge demographics within Barton and Hamilton, and we would like to be able to recognize that and look at these opportunities and gaps in how we make Barton a meaningful place to walk and safe to use the road. As part of the project, we're also doing underground infrastructure. So, underground infrastructure that we're doing is for water and wastewater, to make sure that when we do the construction of the road, that we have the efficiency for all the different services. One of the programs that we have been doing is to separate the combined sewers. This will provide us a better opportunity to do water quality with whenever rainfall comes in, and as a way for us responding and have an adaptation to the climate changes or the climate change threat to our community. That having said, right, we have a public information in October 17th, and this is where I would like to invite everybody to participate on that October 17th public engagement. This is where we get all our experts in the room. We're gonna take questions from everybody to provide you answers for tough questions that you might have. We plan to complete the design in February 2025. Yes, so we'd like to complete the project in 2025. So if you are not able to attend, we also have this survey, a very simple survey, which we would like you to be able to complete the survey. So that survey basically has three parts. One is for us to understand where you live so that we could match that up with the feedback that we're getting from the residences. We also would like to understand how you move around Barton, from going from point A to point B as a way of your business or as a way of recreation. The last part of it is an open-ended question. So it's an open-ended question so that we understand how you would like us to make an assessment and understand how we evaluate the project and how we are able to develop the preferred alternative for Barton. It's kind of interesting. For the past 3 weeks, we are able to gain at least 357, if I get that number right, responses from the public. So that's really a huge response. It's really kind of important that getting that feedback from everybody, you have the power to be able to guide us in what you wanted for Barton, what you wanted for your community. So if I may look a little bit on my notes here. So out of the 357 responses, so there is a lot of interest in providing better sidewalk, cycling, and a safer place to drive. But what's really very interesting that there's a lot of responses, is two-thirds that you and, residences within Barton to see a little bit more aesthetics into the road, a lot more trees and greeneries. So that is really very important. I like you guys to be able to influence, right, the results. And by hearing from you, that would guide us in making the right decisions for the Barton design. Now, you are not my only stakeholder for the project. There are competing priorities to this. And when I say competing priorities, for us to be able to provide that services for the community. So say, for example, for trucks. So for trucks, it is a corridor for us to move goods and services. So it's really kind of important for us to provide, right, the right lane width for trucks to move. Trucks are getting bigger and bigger. So we would like to be able to look at the different intersections to make sure that they are able to make the turning movements in a safe manner. We also have street parking. So out of the responses that we got, we would like to make sure that there's efficient use of parking. We like to be able to see whether we could sacrifice some of the parking for purposes of putting other services, say for example, cycling or a wider sidewalk. Transit, we have also discussed with transit. Transit is also a challenge for us or a challenge for them, right? Having a narrow road. So given all the balance that we have, we also would like transit to be efficient, to be moving from point A to point B. So how do we balance those designs and how do we then balance our decision on which infrastructure we needed to put along the corridor? And of course, for active transportation, when I say active transportation, this more relates to cycling and pedestrianization. This is mostly your interest. So by responding to the survey and giving us more feedback, we understand what your needs are. If this is your priority, I'd like you to be able to influence the results of our evaluation. Now, we have done a lot of workshops internally. And out of that workshop, from the different groups, from transit, transportation and maintenance group and planning, we were able to develop several concepts. So Ward 4, or from Ottawa to the Red Hook Valley, is a truck route. So it's really very important for us to have a unique way of looking at it. And with all that concepts, right, what we would like to provide is give you some concepts so that when you look and respond to the survey, it will provoke some ideas, right, on are there other things that probably is better on how to do things. With that, I would like to pass on to Andrew to talk a little bit more about the different concepts that we have come up with.
Down narrow. Alex, watch out for the,
Please stay within the green.
stay inside, otherwise Pascal will get mad.
Perfect. Okay, so thanks, Alex. So just to provide an overview of what we look at on the Barton Street corridor today, there's a varying typology system that's in place in Barton. So if you look at the top left, kind of the west end of Barton Street, we have more of a two-lane type of road with areas of on-street parking, subway areas with some median landscaping features. We start to move into the middle of the Barton Street area. We have a bit of a wider road cross-section, which is generally 4 lanes, some areas of center turning lanes as well to aid in vehicles entering into businesses, etc. And then when we move to the eastern end of Barton Street, we really see that wider 4-lane cross-section maintained, and in the eastern section, a very wide center median with street trees on the outside of the corridor as well. So when we look at the existing conditions of Barton Street and ask ourselves, what are some of the options that we can work with within the existing right of way? We have developed a few options to date. Option B1, which we have on screen here, would present a 4-lane option with kind of narrower sidewalks and cycle tracks, but providing separate spaces for those users. If we look at B2, when we start to see, what would the trade-offs be within that boulevard space, option B2 provides 4 lanes for vehicle travel and wider sidewalks based on the implementation of more modern and current lane widths in the corridor. It also presents some opportunities for landscaping along the sidewalks to provide a more welcoming pedestrian space. And option B3, which provides, again, 4 vehicle lanes, would provide a multi-use trail on the north side to connect to the existing network on Barton Street. There would be some considerations for this option, especially in some of the busier areas where it's more encouraged to provide separation of operating space between users. But these are kind of a range of options that we are presenting, and we'll be discussing in more detail at our public open house on October 17th. And we're looking for feedback from the community about what are some of the priorities that we should for every quarter. So just to touch on briefly where we go with the evaluation of our various options that are on the table for Barton Street. First and foremost, we do want to hear from the community about the priorities through the survey and through attendance, hopefully at our public open house. There are a range of trade-offs that we do have to look at for this section of Barton Street, particularly between areas such as the BIAs, areas where there's a high prevalence of truck use along the corridor, as Alex mentioned, some considerations we have to look at from lane width and connectivity, different areas for transit services, parking meters, and as well the available space that we actually have to make any design updates to the board. So with that, just to summarize where we are in the project, as mentioned, the ARPA will be made public engagement events on October 17th. And the details are available on the city's project website, which can be accessed from engagehamilton.ca/Barton Street Functional Design. Following our engagement, we will be looking to do more of a formal evaluation of the options on the table, and then finalizing our study into late 2024 and early 2025 as needed. So with that, happy to open up to any questions.
Oh, you hold on to that.
Okay.
We have a couple surveys on paper. I think.
Sure, just to highlight as well, we talked about the public survey. Do you have a couple printed copies of the survey in the back of the room? Please feel free to take a copy tonight or visit the project website and complete it directly. If you would like to complete a copy printed survey tonight, feel free to leave it in the room and we can survey take that out.
Yes, see, I told you Pascal would get mad. Questions at all? Yes.
So open house October 17th, as Alex stated, aiming for a February 2025 completion of the study or report. What would that translate to from an actual breaking ground standpoint? Is that late 2025 or are we looking at 2030?
Sure, I might defer to Alex. Speaker timelines are on.
Yes, here.
But we do have two.
So, we aggressively would like to complete the project in at least latest February 2025. At that point, we're going to turn that over for detailed design, given the preferred alternative as an outcome of this study. So we are also targeting for 2026 to have a soft target for us to do the tender. Obviously, the tender for construction will be based on the final details of detailed design process.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Andrew, I mean, sorry. Sean, please continue.
Okay, so I guess the follow-up for that is, along with this study, is there a proposed budget? Is that within your purview, or is that going to be once the study is handed off to whoever makes those decisions?
Yeah, so the project initially already have some budget allocated for certain sections of the road. Because of this study, we have identified other infrastructure that needs to be constructed. So given that at the end of the study, if there are infrastructures that has not been identified for capital funding, then we would make the recommendation to move forward and ask ask for funding for those projects. So specifically for Ward 4, for Kendall Work and Park Hills, for example, we identified additional opportunities for underground services. That doesn't necessarily have to go in because we might really not find a huge benefit moving forward. But if that will move forward and specifically for road resurfacing, for example, in the underground services, if we strongly recommend under the study, then we will move forward to council to ask for more budget for the additional works.
John and then Brittany.
So my biggest concern, we're a business owner on Parkdale, and we suffered through the Red Hill to Parkdale construction on Park. And from my point of view, and I used to be in construction, it took way too long. Right? We expect that. I remember last Christmas when, oh my God, the Christmas miracle is open in time, but it was really just, so we get to the shopping mall. That's all it really was. And then Cuthbert again, we went through it again, and when we drove it every day, we experienced 3 or 4 guys working, but 2 lanes, the entire distance closed for a mile.
Yeah, and for specificity, like he used to run a road grinding crew.
So I do have a little bit of experience on
So the question was about
the timeline.
the timelines in terms of construction. So I can understand and feel your pain because as the ward counselor, it's the most heart-wrenching to watch businesses suffer through what could be unnecessarily long timelines. So that's something that I will take back. But in terms of like construction, Alex, I guess that's still a little early days because we still have to get the design going, right?
Yeah, you won't, I understand you won't have an answer yet, but I mean, I just don't want to see the repeat of what we went through.
Agreed, and
Because it
yeah.
was difficult for us just to get to work,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Yeah, construction's not awesome. That's definitely necessary because we do, as you all know, Barton Street has won twice.
Worst road in
CAA's
Canada.
worst road in Canada. It is something I would love to remedy. Therefore, I would love the opportunity to try and make it better, knowing and being mindful that construction does suck. I'm also super mindful that construction is supposed to be happening on the LRT line, so it could be doubly extra hurtful in Ward 4. So I will keep that, the Ward 14 has heard you, so
yeah,
absolutely.
like, we'd be fortunate that we are in Parkdale, but we used to go to Buddy Stuff like once a week. And then we stopped going because it was one way.
Buddy Subs is open again, so maybe
No, I
you
know,
guys
yeah,
have to make sure that you
yeah,
have to
yeah,
go
yeah.
Buddy Subs.
But I felt so bad for him.
Yeah.
Right, I felt so bad for him.
We definitely heard from him too.
Yeah.
You know where I live? I drive my wife to work every morning at 6. And honestly, I get pissed off because I have no idea.
Which lane?
It should be paving, really, going east to west.
Yeah.
They're paving it a second time, I don't
We
understand.
have a slide about that.
Trust
And
me,
I
yeah.
love Buddy, but my buddy's cousins runs it.
Yeah.
And I go in there now, it's dead. Because nobody goes there.
Please patron Buddy Subs on Barton Street. They
Yes.
would love to have your patronage. Absolutely. Thank you, Wade. It is absolutely really challenging. It's something that as a ward office, when we watch that, we're just like, why are we repaving this again? Pascal says that there's a slide on it, so we can speak to it later, but I absolutely hear you. It's something that, this is the reason why I sit on Open for Business Subcommittee. I sit on the LRT Subcommittee because I don't want this to happen. So these are the reasons why I sit on as many committees as I do, because I care about small business and I care about ensuring that we create detours and opportunities to ensure that small businesses, they're going to suffer, but we don't want to make them suffer that much. So, okay, any other questions?
So like, while we're ripping up the road, what's the opportunity for like throwing in some infrastructure for like rezoning? Cause there's a lot of just like straight up commercial space along the Barton corridor, but like, what about a greengrocer? What about, slightly adjusting some of the zoning plots along the stretch? Like, what's the potential there?
Yeah, that's kind of a bit beyond the scope of what we do, but it's kind of a planning exercise. it's a kind of a planning exercise that needs to be brought up to our planning people. So having said that, right, all the infrastructure that we do is based on what the needs for development. So as I said earlier, right, so for example, with infrastructure, we want to make sure that any zoning requirement, I guess, or whatever development is happening within the community or along Barton, that our infrastructure actually supports it. So we would like our infrastructure to be efficient and has the capacity to do it. And just to segue a little bit about the question of construction. Yeah, construction is always really painful, right? But I just had a little bit of discussion with our director trying to point that out. We try to learn all the time from our experience with Barton. We're hoping that things will be a little bit different, how we deal with the construction. And that's the reason why we have this functional design, because we would like to be able to capture every infrastructure that we need to construct within the project limit so that we just do it on time. So we don't want to build the road, say for example, and then build the underground infrastructure later and rig the road. So it's a careful exercise that we have been doing to make sure that the construction, we do the construction in a shorter period and we do it on time. So I'm not quite sure whether I understand the question about doing the asphalt twice. So usually when we do a road, we have the base asphalt, and then after the base asphalt and after all the other works that needs to be done on the construction, we do the top asphalt. So that's kind of the covering that makes the final work for the road construction.
Good to know.
Take 2 years to do it.
There's that too.
They filled a hole in China that was it 2 blocks? They done it in 2 weeks.
That's China though.
I know that, but I'm saying if they could do that, why does it take 2 years? I mean, I drive by there, I see more people
Yeah.
standing with their hands in their, you know what, than they do working. I traveled through Quebec not too long ago,
Yeah.
2 in the morning, for 300 kilometers to do construction in this one area. 3 kilometers, and there was one person standing around doing nothing. Everybody's working. Here, if you look at a hole, you might have 8 guys standing around it, and one guy's down there going, hey, there's dirt down here. I'm sorry, man, it gets frustrating, and I'm a homeowner. My wife and I, it's frustrating our taxpayers. I mean, it seems we do everything twice. You did the Red Hill twice. You don't need to pave it twice. You've been driving it since it was built. It's speed. I get on a Park Street in the morning at 6 o'clock. If I'm not doing 40 when I get on, I get run off the road. I come back on at Stone Church, coming off the link, I do 150. Where's the police?
Thanks,
Right.
Wade.
You call them, they say, oh, we're short-staffed.
So I just wanted to go back to Brittany's question about zoning on the Barton Street. So I don't know, Omo, if you're able to answer any of those sort of.
Concerning zoning, that will be a planning thing, not part of the scope. And for zoning, it has to be with the city hall. You need to know when to do what kind of thing you need. You need to apply for the zoning. So it is a different aspect of implementation of what we are doing and impacting functionally. If we resolve, if we are able to resolve the zoning early enough, it can be integrated into this project. So those are the ways, just as if an individual can ask for rezoning for a particular aspect of the community that they live. So that is driven by the community.
Okay, so basically, like if we want a grocery store on Kenilworth, like now is the time to start bugging planning committee.
Yes.
Don't worry,
But
I'm
you
on
have-
it. I'm on it.
You have to meet their requirements as to what they need to get it done.
If I can piggyback on your question there, so I guess, and maybe this is what you were trying to get at, is we have the road dug up. So a rife example, I know it's not Ward 4, but if I look at like Nash and Barton, where the Locos is, beside it was that truck transfer depot that was torn down, which is now walking distance to the new GO train station beside a grocery store. That is prime real estate to do what they've done in Grimsby, which is have a 2-level commercial thing, hair salon, karate studio, whatever, tax office, lawyer's office, optometrist, and then 8 to 20 floors of residential on top. Well, I'm assuming the truck depot was flushing one toilet. So the wastewater management there is going to be nothing. And now it needs to be enough to support 1,000 people there every day. So if we already have the road ripped up, can we put some of those preemptive infrastructures in place? And, or if that's even being a consideration, and then also if this is gonna become now a paved surface, is the storm drain that exists there enough to then compensate for what is gonna happen if we get, a huge overflow there?
Yeah, I think, I think cover part of that one already, part of the underground infrastructure that they are working on.
Right.
In that underground infrastructure, takes into consideration of all the future planning development that we know of today.
Yeah, so that's basically part of the study. So you will see at the end of the report, we've identified all developments or future developments that might happen. And that's where I was alluding earlier, right? That we also have to look at the underground services to make sure that there's efficiency and capacity based on the understanding of what are the future developments that's going to happen.
Brittany, any more questions? No? Any other questions from our audience at all? All right, so. Thank you to the, Omo,
Yeah.
last word?
Yes, last one, if I may, just chip in to clarify or help you understand why sometimes we'll wait a couple of years after the first output, where we dig a big hole, put underground infrastructure, and we backfill. It takes a couple of years to have good settlement or good compassion. So if we put the original base asphalt that, as mentioned, it settles down. Then after that settlement has occurred to some extent, we now come back to put the final asphalt. All the services we have put in place, we adjust them to the new level. So that is why we wait a couple of years, not in every situation, but for some specific type of roads and underground infrastructure.
Is that mostly because Barton Street in that area has so much traffic, truck traffic, heavy traffic, like heavy loads that go along it? Is that why it's more important to do that there than elsewhere?
In terms of the truck traffic, that would affect the compassion. The compassion will be more obvious because of the weight of the truck. So and that is more noticeable. So we have to wait and let that compassion settles before we come back and do the surface asphalt.
Oh, okay. That makes the most sense to me.
I know, it makes
sense.
Oh, settling, got it, okay. Everyone, if there are no more questions, can we all please thank our guests, Alex, Omo, Andrew, Taki. Thank you guys so much. If there are any other questions, we'll take note of it and then we will send them to you. But thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Pascal, can you turn?
We are ready.
We are ready. Ward 4 updates. Ooh, there's a lot going on in the ward. There's a lot going on in the city. Thank you again. Drive safe, guys. I know that you guys are coming in from a bunch of different places, so drive safe, please. Okay, so let's get right into it. Ward 4 update. So we do have several Engage Hamilton surveys that are available right now. As you know, do the Barton Street Functional Review. We would love to have that information. There's also the Landmarks and Monuments Review. So this is looking at our existing landmarks and monuments, but asking the community about how you would like to receive information on the other side. Anything, Indigenous stories as they may relate to that landmark, and how would you like to receive that information? What does that look like? How engaged do you want to be? That's what that survey is about. It is not asking about whether you are removing said landmarks. It's about sharing the stories, the alternative, the other sides of the story that we might not have grown up with. So that is why this is a very important survey. HSR has turned 150 years old. They are looking pretty young. And what's really funny is that they've reskinned some of their buses to look like the old-timey HSR. And I was like, they look really good, we should keep them. Last bit is the tourism Hamilton strategy. And Coming from economic development, this one I was like particular, I was like really needling in on this because I really want us to generate revenues that are outside of the property tax base, because we have assets that are amazing in this community, but yet for some reason, we're not doing a great job of talking about them. Hence the reason for, I gave a ton of feedback on this tourism strategy, would love it for you guys to give some feedback as well. Upcoming capital projects. So these ones are already done. We're so excited that some of them are done. Fairfield, they ripped up the road, they put in a new water main, awesome. Glad that we could do that. Kenilworth Reservoir, there was a problem with some of the slope and some of the grass and the soil that was there, so they had to remediate some of that. So I think our water is pretty important, so I'm super also glad about this reservoir being finished. Talbot Street to Parkdale Avenue. So this is, as we just talked about, construction has come back, but we have clearly just heard from the road guys that it's about compaction, and it's about settling, and it's about, point is that our office is going to keep on them to ensure that we're trying to minimize the amount of disruption there. And again, I'm keeping a very close eye on what we've learned, lessons learned here, because if they're gonna rip up all of Barton Street, it's gonna be a headache. When they're ready to rip up the LRT corridor, it's gonna be a headache. So I really wanna keep on them about being as efficient, business sensitive, and really trying to minimize the inconveniences as much as possible. So, Main Street, so that is from the Queenston traffic circle down to Parkdale. As you know, Main Street is not Queenston. Main Street's just in behind Queenston. It is getting started on some LRT enablement. Because they're gonna rip up Queenston, they gotta move a bunch of the water mains, and that's what this is. This is preempting all of that stuff. And one of the awesome things is that they're going to make Main Street look beautiful. Right now, Main Street looks like a giant highway. It's like 4 lanes across. What the new Main Street is gonna look like, it's gonna be a bit of a road diet, and then there's gonna add boulevards, trees, and what's even more awesome, and Pascal's super, super excited about it, is cycling infrastructure. So Main Street's gonna look really different. We put $400K into that just to add that, because otherwise it wasn't gonna be included. And we're like, what? You're gonna rip up the street and not put cycling infrastructure? Okay. So hence the reason why we have ensured that we are trying to build it as pedestrian and as cycle friendly as possible. Other infrastructure projects. Pascal, do you want to come talk about this? I'm not sure what this is about. Pascal, everybody, welcome Pascal.
No, really?
It's actually really just, it's pretty simple. So along Queenston Road, they were expecting construction in 2024. It hasn't started yet and is trenchless rehabilitation. So that means that the work that they're going to do, there won't be any trenches. They're going to do sort of like in the neighborhood in Delta East when they were doing all of our water. There was just a couple of different spots where you might when you drive over it. That's what's going to happen along Queenston Road to do some trenchless rehabilitation. And then down on Burlington Street, closer to Wentworth, but they're going to do a large water main valve replacement, and it is at the design stage. So they're still looking at putting it together and making it planning, like we're doing.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Pascal. Next is Frederick Avenue. This is the very first time our office was able to push through speed bumps. First time, but we are working on a whole suite of additional traffic calming. So that may be speed bumps, it may be curbs, it may be something else. The point is that we really want to be intentional about traffic calming in our ward. And a question has come up by another resident from another ward asking, how come Ward 4 doesn't do this huge suite? And why haven't we done a complete streets audit? And so that was one of the very first things I said right when I got into office. I really wanted to do a complete streets audit. We were pretty much told no, because The reason for this is that other wards had done it. Ward 3 had done one, Ward 8 is in the process of doing one. And that's when staff realized how important traffic calming across the city is to this council. And when you do it piecemeal like that, it ends up being a terrible sort of user experience for every single user. Car people, people walking, people on bikes. So rather than doing it weird, haphazard, at different times, the city really wants to do a full and complete streets. But that doesn't stop us. What we're trying to do in the ward office is we're trying to do it on a neighborhood level. So literally looking at it neighborhood by neighborhood, identifying the streets and kind of doing it that way, all in the context of the larger city traffic audit. So that's the reason why we're not doing a ward level traffic audit. It is, we're just trying to fit into the big greater city plan, but trying to do the small interactions or the smaller investments on a street and neighborhood level as quickly as possible. But yes, Frederick was our first one, more to come. Let's get into the big ones, housing and homelessness. Today was council. It apparently was a little bit spicy. I happened to be doing city business. I was sitting in a board meeting at the time, so I wasn't able to participate. But essentially, we have a strategy for housing and homelessness, which is bigger and more beyond than the encampment protocol that we have today. Essentially, the Coles Notes version of this is we are expanding shelter services, and you can see these are the number of temporary shelter beds that we will be increasing to. So we had 394, it will now be 527. So that 192 is extra and brand new. And this is how the breakdown is. 20 Wesley beds, these are for mostly addictions and severe, like high acuity kind of clients. 82 for men and gender diverse individuals at Mission Services. 45 for women and gender diverse at YWCA, Integral House, and MS Place. 45 beds for asylum seekers, and that's gonna be at Wesley. And then there are gonna be 6 pet friendly. So this is just shelters. This is expanding on the existing shelter services that we have. We also have, oh, I thought the next one was not, oh, I guess, did we miss the slide? Outdoor shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did it go?
Oh, okay, so there is another
80.
slide.
80.
There are 40 small individual shelters that will be placed at the Barton Tiffany lands. That will include significant wraparound services. It will also include on-site wash facilities, consultation and mental health care. There will also be washrooms, laundry service, essentially to try and get a lot of the people that don't necessarily fit the women's shelter, the men's shelter, any of those things. So sometimes we have those living homeless, they want to be in their relationship. So there are couples, there are those that have dogs or pets, and they don't necessarily fit into the existing shelter service. So this is where the new outdoor shelter will be. That passed today. It got ratified at council, so staff are ready to go. Let's do this. So going back to our next slide. So in terms of how we are keeping up. Yes, Jandy, Proba.
Sorry to interrupt. Just wondering, if you go back to that previous slide, I'm wondering, has the city had those conversations with hospitals, for instance, with the pressures?
Yes.
Especially going into colder months where length of stay tends to increase, our healthcare providers are experiencing a lot more and psychological distress and ethical distress over discharging patients who have going to testing.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Sorry?
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, have we, in this sort of shelter and housing and homelessness plan have we been consulting with the hospital systems? Because especially as we're getting into the colder months. Short answer is yes. I know for sure St. Joseph is at this decision-making table. I think HHS has been asked, but I'm not sure if they've sent a representative. But the fact is, the hospitals are a part of this decision-making table in order to help with the entire whole of Hamilton to try and help for housing and homelessness. I don't know what else to say to that. Those are implementation, and that's where staff are kind of getting into that. Okay. So in terms of the encampment dashboard, this is how us as a ward office keep apprised of what's happening in our ward and in the rest of the city. Every time you make a comment or an inquiry to our office, the first thing we do is we send a note to Unsheltered. Unsheltered aggregates all of this information and puts it into a dashboard for us so that all of council sees it on an aggregate level. So in terms of our numbers, these are our numbers, so that Pascal has put that into this slide here. But ultimately, there are 210 non-unique interactions with unsheltered individuals, 47 sites that we're seeing across the city. They're being maintained. By maintained, it means that they're being actively worked with. So we will have unsheltered team go out and actively engage with those that are living at those sites. And they're the ones that are also potentially being cleared out if they're not compliant or they're being moved somewhere else. So this is just a snapshot of how active the unsheltered team is doing. So please continue to let us know if you do see an encampment, we can action upon it. The point is to ensure that these people are trying to be healthy, we're trying to get them into housing, and we're trying to be compassionate about this, while also ensuring that residents feel safe. So please just let us know, that way we can help with what those next steps are. Brittany.
So when Unsheltered goes out, is an invitation sent to Neil Lumsden to go along with them to see the province's impact of lack of funding in housing? And have we considered that as a possibility?
Would you like to repeat that question?
Wow, thank you, Brittany. The question was, when we send a note to Unsheltered and Unsheltered goes out into the action, all of the steps that they action, do we invite MPP Neil Lumsden to see firsthand what is the impact of provincial downloading and lack of funding? Thank you, Brittany, for that question. I'm glad I didn't ask that question, you asked that question. That is not part of our protocol. That is not part of the quote MO. As residents, though, that live in this area, you are actually more powerful than me when influencing MPP Neil Lumsden. We request meetings with him. We get a chance to get an hour with him, and we're very polite and we are very respectful to each other. I can make as many asks and I can show him the data, but at the end of the day, we, as in Hamilton East, we vote for whoever we want at Queen's Park. And so he listens to residents far more than he would listen to me, actually. So as residents, my encouragement is to continue to message Neil Lumsden's office, because at the end of the day, he requires your vote in order to stay at Queen's Park. And he will do things to make you happy. So this is why you are more powerful. But I know Wade has a great relationship with the MPP's office. But Wade, did you have a question?
You contact this office yourself. Don't fluff it away like a feather. You need more than one person to go to his office. I'm sorry. I voted for the guys in the Cats fan, but they're probably not me. I'm sorry, folks, if you like them. I've sat down with them. I voted for them. I always said, if you don't vote for someone, don't talk about it. If you vote for them, you have a right. But they just, see, where I didn't make it a problem and followed. I don't know if anybody here is a problem not followed. Where I live, I'm here in Russell. And for the last 3 years, ever since he's come in the office, forget it. I'm sorry. One person doesn't do anything, I've heard it from Tammy, Pascal, one person can't do nothing. We need more than one. If we all came together, we may get something done through this guy. As
Thank
these
you.
girls here, I love them.
Aw,
Compared
Wade,
to the last one that you replaced,
aw, Wade, thank you, Wade.
I got banned from his meetings. They invite me.
That's great.
So Wade actually makes a really great point. Sometimes one
Run against
voice.
Thompson, I'll vote for you. I'll vote for you too.
We got a lot of work to do in Ward 4 right now, so doubling down, trying to get a lot of work done in Ward 4 right now. Yeah, Wade makes a great point. Sometimes you just gotta be dogged at this. Sometimes it's one person, but if we can try and recruit more of our community to say the same thing to Neil Lumsden, that this is important to us. Because again, at the end of the day, I'm only one voice, Pascal is one voice, Jack is only one voice, we're only 3 voices. So having the collective Ward 4 community speak about these are important to us, that makes much more sense to him. So thank you, Wade. Moving on to project, oh, sorry, Taylor, what's up?
In terms of the added shelter beds, the implementation timeline, there's talks about it all being done by the end of this year, or is that for Barton and Tiffany specifically and not the rest of the shelter?
So the question is, what is the timeline for the shelter beds, or is this about Barton Tiffany? So the shelter beds are actually a little bit faster moving because actually there is, the kicker in all of this is that there are capacity at the building level. The problem though at shelters is the capacity for the wraparound services, the people and all of that stuff. So this additional funding to help them increase the number of shelter beds is to add more people to the shelters to ensure that they're actually getting themselves ready for that. So I will tell you that there are shelters that have that capacity and they're ready to go today, as long as the money hits the bank kind of deal. So I would say that the shelters are much faster than the outdoor shelter. The outdoor shelter, even though we have the space, needs a lot. Like it still needs to be properly fenced. It still needs to have enough of the mitigation for contamination. We have to make sure that we build the shelters that are there. We have to make sure that we put the personnel in place in order to help with like creating the office-y type environments. We need to put in the water systems in order to have the wash facility. So there's a lot more. The aim is to try and get it before the snow falls. But that's why we're pushing real hard to get there. Yes, Sean.
So as somebody who works in this space, to follow up on Taylor's question here, when we're looking at the implementation of shelters in an outdoor space, does the city have, like, how are these shelters being constructed? Who is responsible for that construction? And so here's the proposal, right? So I've seen this in other situations where they've put out a bid, the city has approved a design and said the budget for this shelter is insert X number of dollars. We will put this out, and then as a small business or as a medium-sized business or whatever, I can say in the timeline before December 15th, we have the capacity to build 10 of these. And as a small business, I have the capacity to build 4 of these and so on and so forth. So we can get 100 of these things made in a 1-month timeline because we're not relying on one business to do it. Here's the X money that you get, follow these design plans. If you don't follow these plans, you don't get paid. If you go over budget, that's your problem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a very quick and clean way to get all of these things done before we have snow.
Yes, so the question was, how are we executing on, say, the shelters? Who's gonna do that? Is there an opportunity to have small businesses do that? Because collectively, we can push these shelters out really fast. That is all delegated authority to staff because they know that it is about speed and timeliness. I will tell you that as a counselor and full transparency, I have been solicited by several small shelter companies. Some are from the US, others are here in Hamilton. What's compelling is that some of them are able to say they can go from invoice to delivery in 6 weeks. So there is, because they have economies of scale, we do actually in Hamilton have 2 modular housing, like modular builders. Beck in Ancaster and the other one is Stony Creek, I can't remember the name of it. But the point is that we do actually have 2 companies that are modular companies. And then we also have another organization called Future Shelter that's also here. They also said, yeah, like these are the things that are super compelling, from invoice to delivery in 6 weeks. So it's kind of one of those things where we've let that go to staff, because as much as I want to support small business and we can make those suggestions, I think that we also have to let staff find out what is the most expedient, timely way to get the unhoused into 4 walls and a roof as quickly as possible.
That was still a good intangible answer. Yeah. 6 weeks is a good turnaround.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So we find part of the problem is as the timeline decreases, the price decreases.
Yes.
So I was very specific because I said, what about bulk discounts? And they said, yes, counselor. And I was like, I will hold you to it. So council is very mindful of how much this is costing us. So I definitely asked that
The
question.
city started, I think, what you're talking about. When I look at these modular homes going on, right? I pay attention more towards what you're saying, and what about getting the water and, toilet, everything for toilets and all that. Does the city, like, they must know where these homes are going, many homes. So do they start with the combination of water and all that ahead of time? Or are they just gonna go and get the homes and then say, oh yeah, then we're gonna start? Because if you go 6 weeks to build them, it might take 6 months to get the water there. Plus then you've got the people that you gotta hire to supervise what's going in there to, I like the fact that you're giving it to people who are tripped out of their homes and they're not on the corner with a sign that says, give me your money, God bless you, and you go back home.
So the question now is, how is this being implemented? Because
Yeah,
sometimes,
they're gonna drag on.
yeah, so it could be time is of the essence, absolutely. And also part of your question, Wade, was as we're talking about infrastructure may be an impediment because if, let's say, we have the houses go through it, blah, blah, blah. So essentially it's like looking at things like, is it A, B, C, step 1, step 2, step 3? Or is it all at the same time, everybody runs on 6 different cylinders and we're all just trying to make it all work together? So again, I think that comes down to an implementation question that I'm not entirely sure about. But I do know that there are ways to solve water and infrastructure. I mean, food trucks do this all the time. The idea of you can bring a giant reservoir of water and that is how it gets filled up on a weekly basis, and that's how you're figuring out your wash facilities. I think that we can solve infrastructure without waiting the 6 months of actually digging and finding infrastructure and doing things with a giant sewer system and all that stuff. I think that there are ways to be innovative here. So,
Down right around the corner from you, there you go.
Yeah.
It's gonna get cold, and the colder it gets, the more garbage, I hate to say, you see out front.
agreed. And that's the thing I also think about, it's cold outside.
I feel sorry for them.
Absolutely. So I think that this is about speed and immediacy and essentially trusting that the staff are going to make these operational decisions. Because at the end of the day, if you have to come to me to ask about these sort of things, it's going to be a bottleneck. And frankly, we don't need that kind of bureaucracy, especially if we have people sleeping outside. So it is about speed and immediacy and trusting that our staff are gonna get there. I think we've given them enough of the guardrails to kind of keep them in terms of what the expectation is, but we need to trust staff in order to get that going. Okay. Taylor.
Is the implementation of the new shelter beds in the sanctuary site going to impact the containment protocol and it remaining in place? What's the impact on that? Because it is an increase, of course, but I mean, there's still lots of people still might be needed for those, right?
That's a great question. Is this increase in this plan going to impact the existing encampment protocol? The short answer is yes, it will. The encampment protocol will still be in place because at the end of the day, there is no on-off switch. Because even though we are creating this capacity and we are making sure that people are getting into the right spaces at the right times, there are still going to be things or times or people that are not ready to move into this system. And so as much as we're going to continue to move them through, we also need to meet people where they're at because sometimes they're just not ready yet. So the encampment protocol still has to be in place. But with this new plan, it does start to alleviate the number of encampments that are around the city. We will start to see a lessening, and we will also start to see movement into other places that will allow us to empty out different parks and essentially try and increase the safety and the perception of safety for housed residents, those that have houses. So we are trying to ensure that we're seeing all sides and trying to be as respectful to all sides of this, because homelessness is not something anybody wants to wish on anybody else. So I think we're all just trying to navigate what this looks like. Okay. All right, are we cool to continue moving on? Because I can zip through these. These are super fast because I think you've seen them in multiple town halls. You must have seen the Queenston Traffic Circle. Those are looking pretty awesome. The cladding is almost up, so they're expecting the first one to be move-in ready by November. Yeah, that's the one closest to the actual Queenston. The one in behind is probably like middle of next year. So it's super fast. Also, Brittany will like that because they are geared towards women and families. So affordable housing from City Housing Hamilton, so it's pretty awesome. Delta Secondary. It was, so Delta's almost done at the OLT. And actually what ended up happening was our team and the developer team really tried to work really hard together. So in fact, their merit hearing was actually canceled and it's going to a settlement. So I can't give you too much. I'll just say that it is actually moving forward. Unfortunately, you're still gonna see tall towers, but at the end of the day, they're going to be beautiful houses and condos there. So,
Who's the developer?
New Horizon, so Jeff Pagans. So Jeff is at New Horizon is an excellent developer. They do things by the book. It's not gonna be crappy. It's gonna be a beautiful beautiful piece of property there. 1842 is the Brock University. That is also kind of going through a bunch right now. So New Horizon is also working on that property, and it is actually moving through the actual steps to get us there. Roxborough has kind of changed tax. They were originally going to go with townhouses and different condos, but they've actually scrapped one of the condo towers, and they are now building 138 maisonettes. So 130 maisonettes are like kind of like stacked townhouses, kind of like squished together. They're all right beside each other, that sort of thing. So they're not doing they're scrapping one tower and building more like townhousey things. 851 Lawrence, no change, still going. What's up? Budget's coming up, guys. So there's a real opportunity for you to say your piece in front of council. So we want to encourage you to put a delegation forward. We know property taxes are high. I'm a property taxpayer too. Pascal is as well, same as Jack. The fact is we also feel that pain as well. We do our best to relay what you say through the budget process, but sometimes having you come to council to say what you feel and how you feel about it is going to be very impactful. And in fact, if you do take a look at the budget book when it gets released, come and delegate on a particular part. Where do you want to see your investment? Where should property taxes go? Brittany.
Do we have a date of when the budget book is getting released?
Oh, I wish I knew. I do not know when the budget book is being released because I would love to see it right now. It's crazy because I sit on the Association of Municipalities Ontario, so I sit on this board with all these other municipalities. Some of them they're like, oh yeah, we're in the middle of it now. We want to have this buttoned up by December. I'm like, what? We know that other municipalities are already budgeting. 5 to 7% increases. So other smaller municipalities are already doing that. We also know that one particular one in the KW region is starting at 14. We're like, whoa. So it's across the board. Everyone is starting to see their property taxes go up. So it's the benefit and the bane of sitting on this. You get a chance to hear what other municipalities are doing. So yeah, some are going as high as 14. Others are starting point at 5 to 7. So,
5% you're first.
other municipalities are starting at 5%, Sean. Thank you to Pascal for putting together all of the different parties and opportunities to get out into the ward and ways to talk to these guys about some of the challenges that are currently happening in Ward 4, namely black soot and air particulates. So there is always an opportunity to get involved here. I don't know how much more I can point to these sort of things, but we also have this weekend at Gage Park, Truth and Reconciliation Gathering. So I think that that's going to be pretty amazing and impactful to be able to learn a little bit more. And the last bit, let's go on to questions. I think we have lots of time. So, questions? Hi, how's it going, guys?
Do you still enjoy doing this? No.
I mean, legitimate question.
The question is, do I still enjoy doing this? I will tell you that I love trying to solve problems. I will tell you that being on this side, so as a staffer, I felt differently. I felt like, yeah, I can solve problems, I can do these things, but I always had like a counsel that I had to refer back to. Now that I am that counsel, I'm just like, I beat my head against the wall at some of the bureaucracy of it. So I'm actively trying to cut through the bureaucracy to try and figure out how to be much more efficient and a lot more impactful. And I'm realizing I am super impatient. So I am really impatient about a lot of things. And I thought I was a lot better at being resilient. So I'm thankful for the Ward 14, Pascal and Jack, because they do keep me in line and they're like, whoa, 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 they talk me down from the ledge a lot. So it's really good. So I would say.
Short answer, yes. Long answer, more about
Yeah, short answer, yes. Long answer, more. Yes. Yes, Wade.
Going back to the homeless thing.
Mhm.
I would touch on something. Well, it's kind of a bit. I've got a relative who visits the food bank on, I don't know if it's Kenilworth or Ottawa. And I was talking with him the other day. He said there's 4 or 5 different couples that he sees there on a regular basis. And 2 of them are from St. Catharines. I can't remember where the other one was, and another couple from Toronto. He says what they do, they visit the food bank, right? They take the train here, and they visit the food bank, they stock up on food, and the one guy actually tosses his belongings up on top of the food bank as he watches them shimming the wall, and they party for the weekend here on, on free food, and then they go back to their camping bank, but they party at different camping banks here in Hamilton. I don't think that makes sense. I mean, I kind of think that the food we have here should be for, the ones that are homeless here, or not necessarily homeless, people that have a home but they're hurting.
So the question now from Wade is, what happens when we have people that are not Hamiltonians coming, leveraging our services that are here in Hamilton?
Yeah.
Wade, I hear you, but I think that we also have to understand that
We got a big heart.
we do. We have a big heart. We are here to help. We have the most amount of compassion and empathy as a municipality. People are good here. People genuinely are good people here. But we also don't have a history of building up walls and denying service to those that need it. So I think,
Well, no, it's run out, if he doesn't get it at the right time, you see him run out. And he just put two and two together, he's running up because we're giving food away and spread it down.
so I think that comes down to each individual provider making those decisions for themselves about how they want to stretch out. Maybe there is limits to certain things. I don't want to be the one to start to dictate what each provider is going to offer in terms of services. So that might be something that this particular organization, they'll make that decision for themselves. Like, I think that it's not my place as a ward counselor to start to dictate how we deliver services at the service provider level. I do want to create an environment where we are starting to raise up the most vulnerable and raise up those that are in need. I also cannot be the one to be picky and choosy about who gets what service. So I think that it is a challenge. It's absolutely a challenge, but I want to say that it is something that let's collectively as a community figure out how the challenge at the end of the day is that they're also homeless, they're also hungry. So we need to figure out how do we raise up everyone at the same time.
I'm just surprised to hear that.
Yeah, you're right. I'm surprised too.
I just have a question completely unrelated. The Bruce Trail that follows along the escarpment in our ward, who's in charge of maintaining that? Is that Bruce Trail? Is that city staff? Yeah, if a tree is fallen across the path or something like that, who would we report that to?
So you could report it to us. We can try and figure out who. So the question is Bruce Trail and who maintains the Bruce Trail. You can let us know. We can try and find whoever the right people are, because it might be a little bit of parks. It might be a little bit of recreation. It might not even be us. It might be the Bruce Trail Conservatory. It might be the Niagara Escarpment. I think it depends on where it is and also perhaps the nature of it. So just let us know. We can try and help and figure out who's the right person to report that to.
I used to belong to the Bruce Trail Society.
Yeah?
There is a number you can call, and it's volunteer.
Okay.
And we just go out and clean it up, fix the paths where the water was and everything else, make the boardwalks and everything.
Oh, great.
You can go online and look that up, yeah, they'll do it right.
Thanks, Wade. But you can let us know too. We'll help with that as well, and then we'll see where it needs to go.
And Uli passed away, who did the stairs.
I know.
So
Yeah,
sad.
so sad. Uli passed away. Yeah.
The man who built Uli's stairs, yeah, he just passed away a few days ago.
Yeah. I heard about that. I don't know what we should do to try and commemorate.
Rebuild the stairs. All the railings fell over the last 2 years.
That is fair. Uli, being the good man that he was, perhaps did what he did and made use of what he could.
Yeah.
Good point. Let me ask about that. Okay, thank you. Any other question? Brittany?
So on the topic of free and cheap food, like, I mean, I don't know, Winona's right there, and we're like, probably one of the most like productive agricultural lands possibly in Canada. What do you suppose is like a good jumping off point to like expand like access to just like cheap food, free food?
So Brittany asks the headiest, biggest question, access to food and food security. Thank you, Brittany, for getting us started on this heady subject. It's a tough question. I'll tell you that the food producers in Winona, because we have a Councillor Jeff Beattie, he himself is a farmer. He will tell you that they are very, very generous, because a lot of those food producers will donate their product to food banks to try and ensure like much more healthier access to food and that sort of thing. There is also many of the organizations like big business like Grupo Bimbo and Maple Leaf Foods, they also have specific sort of giving campaigns that will go to Food for Kids or Food for Hamilton, like the Hamilton Food Share and all of that stuff. So they actually have some of those partnerships already set up. When it comes to food security, I think there's a little bit that's a little bit outside of my realm of responsibility, which is I can't affect Galen Weston. I can't affect how we price food. As a ward counselor, I have no jurisdiction over food prices and the price of milk. The only thing that I can do is how do we, again, try and raise up our community. The things I can try and do is look at job security and access to economic development and try and build up some of the more wealth generating in the city that we can do. But at the same time, I do sit on several boards that do advocate, so I spend my time also advocating to other levels of government to try and affect that too. So it's a tough question. I'm gonna say I don't know. Those are my answers, so I'm really sorry.
We're not solving this here.
What else do you want me to solve? Like, world peace? I can't do that right now. Thank you, though, Brittany. Any other questions at all? Yes, Ken.
You mentioned about some pre-work for LRT. Is there any sort of clarity about an actual schedule or breaking ground? And that might be a big one, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of new to the group.
Thank you, Ken, for that question. What's happening with LRT and when are we actually breaking ground on that? I wish I knew.
Okay.
Right now, it is all about LRT enablement. So those are the things that are within the grasp of the city of Hamilton because LRT is owned by Metrolinx. Like that whole project is a Metrolinx project. So we have been on them to figure out when are you going to go to procurement, when are you going to put shovels in the ground and all of that stuff because the stuff that's happening in, say, Ward 4 and all of these like enablements will be done 2026, early 2026. So feasibly, they should be able to start breaking ground 2025, early 2026, but they still need to go through a procurement process. So we're actively on them. I spend a lot of time in front of Minister Precaria, as well as Premier Ford, asking him these things. Mayor does it way more than I do. Unfortunately, Mayor has to call them a lot more than I do, Premier Precaria. So I think that this council is active in trying to figure out how to get shovels in the ground as soon as possible. The unfortunate and fortunate aspect is that money is being paid from Metrolinx. So we're doing what we can with our money to enable it and to make it happen. Ultimately, they have to make that decision about making that move forward. Yes.
Any update on the Ottawa Street redesign? I know there was that community meeting not that long ago. I don't know how to move forward well.
Well, it has moved forward. We actually have a meeting this Friday about it. Yes, it has moved forward. They have taken all of our community's sort of feedback. I don't know if they've actually allocated additional funds and dollars, and they haven't asked myself or Narinder for money yet. So I think that they're still not ready to actually move on to what an actual formal design looks like. But this Friday, we're gonna get an update, so. Any other questions? Yes, Jack?
We have some questions from people who are not here. So one of the questions is, Lawrence Road bike lanes have all but disappeared. Any plans to resurface the road and remark the bike lanes?
Lawrence Road bike lanes, what's happening to them, and what's the plan for the Lawrence Road bike lanes? It absolutely came up. I remember that I had a very specific meeting. Pascal helped me out here. There's supposed to be a multi-use path that's being input onto Lawrence Road. I just can't remember when.
It was at some point on the books.
Yeah.
And we are unable to find where it disappeared.
So it was on the books, because I remember that it was supposed to be 2025 that they were supposed to start. And then it just like kind of poofed. So I'm not really sure. So you know what, to the person online, we will try and have an update at the next town hall about that. We'll get some answers around that. But I do recall that it wasn't in the budget book last time. So I think that we made a note of it. So we'll ask about that. Any other questions, Jack?
Yes. CN train tracks north of Barton and Ottawa and Kenilworth. Will they ever be fenced?
Oh, the CN tracks north of Barton at Ottawa. Yeah, those are pretty like dangerous train tracks. And it's also weird because sometimes when you look at them, the train, like there's spikes that come up. And I was like always like wondering if people are going to pop a tire or something like that. So the train tracks comes up very, very often in our ward because we also have train tracks south in this neighborhood, in the Rosedale neighborhood as well. Train tracks are weird because they're actually not a municipal jurisdiction. They are actually federal. So all we can do, even though they cut through all of our roads, even though we have to maintain all of the roads up until the train track and after said train tracks are actually the role and responsibility, not just by the federal government, but by either CPKY, like the CP Rail, CN Rail. Those are the only two players. And so we have to book meetings with them through our roads team to ask them for that. They tell us that they will look at it, but then again, it is not our jurisdiction. So as much as we ask them, we will just continue to ask them, but it is their responsibility. Yes, Pascal?
We did ask them, and they said that it's not on their books for the foreseeable future. So 24, 25, they have no plans on fixing it.
So Pascal just gave us some bad news, which is we asked them multiple times, but apparently it is not on their books to be fixed in either 2024 or 2025. But don't fret. The Ward 4 office will continue to be a pain in their ass.
Email your MP.
And email your MP, Chad Collins, by the way. Chad Collins?
And
Chad Collins. Yes, wait.
Those tracks are gonna be fixed pretty soon. It's, CN, they're shipping receiving deal right behind me.
Mhm.
I'm walking on the tracks the other day. They probably have somewhere in the vicinity of about 10,000 of those crescent soaked.
Like railroad ties or creosote?
Railroad ties that they put down.
Yeah.
Because tracks are all coming up. Replacing all that pretty soon.
Oh, we got an inside man. Wade is telling us that.
Because they're the main source of the carbon that you guys are getting in your backyards, all over your patio stuff and everything in your house.
Yes.
And rail, because they done an environmental test on my house. And even the Ministry of Environment, Stephen said that CN is the source.
So our inside man is giving us a little inside information, which is. Yeah, so Wade has,
That'll kill you.
so, sorry, our inside man, not to be named, sorry, Wade.
I'm a pain in their ass.
Has been keeping an eye on CN, let us know that, looks like they will be doing a massive renovation because they have been moving a lot of creosote soaked rail ties along the rail behind.
Yeah, they got them stacked up for probably 5,000 feet.
Okay, so.
About 2 stories.
So it sounds as though there is potential movement, we'll see, but
That thing makes noise.
as part of the challenge too, is that they also kick up a significant amount of black dust into the neighborhood. So that kind of brings me to another sort of off topic that wasn't in the presentation, but is super high, really top of mind for our office, is the accumulation of black soot on all of our properties. So the actual said way that we ought to be doing this is always to be filing a complaint with the MECP, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, because they told us to our face that if they don't hear from you guys, it's like that never happened. So it's like the most like what? So the point is we are actively trying to get our residents to file as many complaints as possible. We ourselves, as a ward office, are also filing complaints. But in terms of actions, they are doing things. They're sending out kits to sample what is this black soot. They are providing the analysis back to residents. So please share that analysis if they give it to you, because apparently it takes them like forever to get back to you guys. But if they share with us, because we would love to be able to compare, contrast, look at this. This is not just a Ward 4 issue, it is happening in Ward 5 and Ward 3. And so myself and Narinder in Ward 3, we're tired of following the same company line of just file a complaint, make sure that people tell about this, blah, 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 blah. So we're gonna try and encourage and actually direct staff to do something from a municipal lens, because we don't know what else we can do, because otherwise it's inaction and it's the same thing and nothing gets solved. So we're trying several different aspects to try and get more action and elevate this so that all of council can be incensed like we are about this type of air particulates and air pollution that's happening in our ward. So that's the short and dirty of it. The point is that we're really trying to maneuver as many municipal levers that we can, all while still following the provincial mandated complaint process that MECP responds to. So we're still doing the right way, but we're also trying other ways to try and get at this. So that's the short answer, is what we're trying to go. So, but please let us know, continue to let us know. Pascal's been really the lead on this to try and help galvanize. So at some point, we might make a call out to all of our residents that we may need you to come out and delegate in front of council and share your stories so that all of council, especially those that live on the mountain or those that live in rural, that don't have this kind of challenge, so that they can see and hear and feel the pain of what we have here in our ward. So we'll let you guys know about that. Yes, Brittany?
So would that be a special committee or general issues, you think?
We're mulling on this, but ultimately it'll likely go to either public health or general issues, because we want all of council to hear it, not just like the committees, because the committees have different compositions of all of the councilors, so we want all of council to hear it. We'll let you guys know. Brittany, you're super good at that organizing, so it would be awesome. Okay. Yes, Jack.
One more question from the invisible audience. Ottawa, Kenilworth Ave revitalization, are there any updates?
Kenilworth Ave revitalization, are there any updates? Yes and no. So yes, because we have actually received several interesting investment inquiries and engagements from those investments to speak about what are the opportunities for their investment on Kenilworth Street. No, because there isn't any tangible movement from the city side, because at the end of the day, much of Kenilworth has already been built up. However, what we're trying to do from a ward office perspective, we're actually gonna try and put trees and planters, because we spent a ton of money, Sam spent a ton of money on renovating and revitalizing Kenilworth Street. What's super interesting, and only until you walk and really look at the ground, will you notice that you can't dig up those giant curb cutouts, because he has put specialized drain infrastructure in there. So you can't actually dig it up to put more trees or anything on there. So we're trying to do the next best thing, which is put trees and planters and beautify the street as best as we can without disturbing the existing investment. At the end of the day, I don't want to spend needless taxpayer dollars to redo something that, even though it wasn't done well the first time around, I don't want to spend our tax dollars on doing something like that. I want to spend as little as possible, but make the maximum amount of impact. So hence, we are putting, I think, 11 trees and 11 planters, plus looking at garbage receptacles and little like, but it definitely. Thank you for that, Jim.
If you can't go in. The capacity to like I don't know, throw out like a city enrichment fund style grant program for like rooftop, like living wall, but like on the roof.
Rooftop living greenery. Something to think about, definitely. Fountains from Devon and rooftop greenery. Okay, cool. Let's look at that, definitely. Thank you for those suggestions, definitely. We're also thinking about how we deal with unassumed valleys. That's also another thing that we're looking at. We're also looking at along streets, but managers. Like we're trying to figure out urban canopy. So we're dabbling with a bunch of these things, but we're also an office of 3. So things take time and we're trying really hard. I already make them work until 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night. So I kind of need to be mindful of our people. So that's all. Okay. If there are no more questions, I feel like we can adjourn this town hall at 8:30. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all. And I'm so happy that you guys are here. Thank you again.
See you in January.
Yes, see you in January. We will have another one in January, probably at King's Forest because it's empty and gorgeous. Yeah. Oh, Merry Christmas, Wade.
That was that is the earliest.
I know, right? It's not even Thanksgiving.
Have a good evening, girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Wade.
Bye, thanks for coming. Yeah, I got some questions on Instagram too, but you had already answered them. So I just rehashed your question.